Delighted to be joined in the studio by the one and only, the guru, the chairman of Migration Watch, Alp Mehmet himself. Alp, thank you for coming in.
Pleasure.
And joining us this Sunday morning. Good morning. So, lots and lots of noise starting to occur because there was this forecast in a few days ago by the Centre for Policy Studies about the overall 2022 lawful migration number. It's due out from the Office of National Statistics, I think on Thursday the 25th of May, unless for any reason it's advanced or delayed. And they're saying that it could be as high as 1 million net. So the gross number would be way higher, and then you've got those emigrating, leaving about 1 million net. A couple of weeks ago, there was a suggestion it might be 700,000. What's going on here? Is this expectation management to sort of build up people's fears and them not be worse, and maybe it might be a lot less than that? What are your thoughts? What's your latest views?
I'd be wary about the 1 million figure. The way things are going, it's quite possible that within a couple of years, that's the sort of level that we'll reach. I doubt, frankly, that it will be that level next time round, figures it being issued on the 25th of the month. Dare I say, the 700,000 figure was actually ours.
That was your figure, yes.
Well, the CPS did use it, but it was based on our calculations.
So have they set yours as the low point and the 1 million as the high point?
I think it's the government, actually, that is suggesting it's going to be 800 to a million, 800,000 to a million. And that's why I'm a little wary about going too big on the million figure. Of course, it's huge. Nevertheless, 700,000 or even 650,000, say, it's still massive, absolutely massive. Let me give you just one figure. Going back over 20 years, the population grew by 8 million. Now, 85% of that was due to migration and children of migrants. Mm-hmm. Now, that was based on a figure of something like 245,000 net. If we're talking every year, if we're talking about double that.
Or treble that.
Or treble that, yes. But double that, frankly, I think that 245,000 is way, way too high, because it is still growing the population at a phenomenal rate, at a rate when we simply can't manage.
And we know that the Office for Budget Responsibility, their forecasts are based on, they increased them. They've previously been looking at 150,000. They'd increased their forecast in the budget to 250,000 net lawful migration every year. But they also admitted that actually per head, there was no benefit in terms of GDP. The chair of the Office for Budget Responsibility admitted that. But if you just look at if you sort of describe it in terms of this, I mean, there's about 250,000 people live in Southampton. So that's the sort of the standard number the OBR is using. Birmingham's 1 million people. You then think, well, if it's approaching the size of Birmingham every year, you think it may get worse or get higher, not smaller. I mean, this is massive.
Well, Richard, when we put in place the points-based system, this great system that a lot of people, dare I say you as well, were saying is going to be the cure-all for all our immigration woes. We're going to get all the people we need, and it's going to lead to a reduction in immigration. That's what Boris Johnson was saying. That system has been loosened to such a ridiculous level that it means that we're sucking in people who are coming here, frankly, a bit coming here for work, coming as students, coming here as family members. All that has been made so much easier, and we're simply drawing them in. Employers, of course, they're going to bring in as many people as they can who are prepared to work for less.
And just to clarify there, what we stood for was a skills-based point system. And you really talk about high-skilled. I always assumed that the average salary would be at least the average salary in the country. But the Tories have actually reduced it to, I mean, and I've checked it because there's over 200 job titles, down to 16,000 a year. It's half the national salary. So they've essentially created open season. And if you're a student, you can come here, study here for a degree, bring your dependents, stay for 2 years, and then work, and then you can apply for a skills-based points visa.
Well, I mean, students is a good point, frankly. Everyone says, oh, this is wonderful, they're coming here and they're contributing with their fees and eventually they go back. Nonsense. The vast majority of those coming here at the moment as students... sorry, I'll take that back. Not the vast majority. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the majority. A sizable proportion of them actually come here without any intention of ever leaving. We're allowing them to stay on for 2 years, irrespective of the course that they've completed, stay on for 2 years and bring their dependents as well. Those who are coming here to do postgraduate work or postgraduate studies, they can immediately bring in their families. There were 120,000 family members who came just from 5 countries last year, from India, from Nigeria, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, and from Sri Lanka.
So in the last 4 years, the dependents only of postgraduate students, not the students themselves, the dependents in 4 years has increased from about 13,000 to over 135,000 of dependents. So it's not surprising the numbers are going through the roof.
Well, it's not surprising, and that's just one small element.
One small bit. Let's take a call because this is such a significant issue that listeners and viewers are focused on. We're going to head up to Burton-on-Trent where Tracy is. Tracy, good morning. Have you got a question? Thanks for calling for Alp. Have we got Tracy?
Yeah, we don't actually. Hello.
Hi there. Yes. Yeah, sorry, I just missed you. What was your question, Tracy?
Right. As far as I understand it, we don't track people that leave the country, okay? So we don't, as far as I'm aware, that we don't actually have precise figures to actually say how many people are actually arriving, because we don't actually track them on the way out like the rest. I mean, I believe Australia track people in and track people out, but I don't believe we do. So how can we be sure that the figures that are coming out from the ONS and, you know, from people like Migration Watch are actually accurate?
Great question, Tracy. Alp, what's the answer for that's the numbers leaving, emigrating?
You've got a very good point there, Tracy. I assure you can trust my figures.
He would say that, wouldn't he, Tracy? But there we are.
That aside, we used to do something... I don't know if you were ever aware of people with clipboards at the airport asking you who you were and what you were doing here and why you were leaving and that sort of thing. That stopped during the pandemic. Yeah. It wasn't brilliant, frankly. There were a lot of faults in that system, but nevertheless, it hasn't been replaced with anything reliable. At the moment, we've got something that the Office for National Statistics describes as experimental.
Okay.
What we do is look at things like official data, national insurance, for example, tax contributions. The Treasury will issue figures. So we have a whole series of different elements to our calculations that are based on official figures, essentially.
Right. So even though we're not actually tracking the people back out, you basically taking the thingy that these figures will give you a reasonably accurate answer to.
Well, yes, we are, and I think that the figures that you will get from us are pretty accurate. I mean, and no one can swear to it being 100%. But nevertheless, ours. But the other thing, Tracy, is that it's all too easy to look at the trends. Yes. You might not be able to get it to within the sort of the 2 decimal points, But when you look at the overall numbers and you look at the historic behaviour of people who leaves, who stays, who goes on to work here, then you can be pretty confident that the figures that you come up with are accurate.
Tracy, great question, great call. Thank you so much indeed. And I think that and I think what you've confirmed actually is that it's a bit more than a sort of finger in the air job, but also that the emigration numbers have been relatively static at 400 to 450,000 a year. Is that about right?
They have. The other thing that's been static, of course, is the number of the net migration figure for British people has always been around 50 to 60,000 negative.
Negative, so that's more leaving than coming back.
Yeah.
Right, got it. Fantastic, that's really, really useful. Let's go down, let's head sort of west to North Wales, where Carol is on the line. Hi there, Carol.
Hello, dear.
Hi there. Hi, thanks for calling in. Have you got a question for Alp?
Well, sort of a question.
Or an observation?
Now, I'm 84, and I've never been so unhappy with my country. Now, what I suggest, and I hope they do it, now the taxpayer in this country contributes to all these immigrants. And it's... Hello, dear.
Hi there. Hi, thanks for calling in. Have you got a question? We're just... we think you've got your radio or something, Carol, on in the background. Could you just turn that down? Because we're struggling to hear you, my friend. We'll come back to you, Carol. Thank you very much indeed. We'll try and get Carol back on the line. Richard in Portsmouth, he said, if house builders have a problem with EU laws, why don't they list them? Then civil service can be targeted to prioritise them. The reality is they do, but they just don't do anything about it. Anyway, let's go up to York, where Mike is on the line. Mike, good morning. Just hold it there a second. Alp just want to say something before you...
Well, just to pick up on what Carol said about paying for all these immigrants, consistently there has been research which shows that overall migration is a net fiscal cost.
It's a net fiscal cost, yes.
Over many years, billions of pounds are actually... It's costing the taxpayer billions of pounds.
Which is contrary to what we've been told for decades by leading civil servants and politicians.
It's simply wrong. And even, you mentioned the Office for Budget Responsibility earlier. Even they said in 2014 that, as you said, it's all very well to grow the cake, but ultimately, because of the growth in population and the demands that has on our resources, it means that the slice doesn't get any bigger at all.
Fine. Well, let's head up to York, where Mike is on the line, and then hopefully we'll get back to Carol. Hi, Mike.
Good morning, you two. Good morning.
What's on your mind?
Why is any emphasis put on ONS figures? And can I give you a prime example? Polish people have to compulsory vote in elections. The ONS said that there was 13,000 Polish people here. But when they registered to vote, the actual Polish government said to our government, you know what, you've got 240,000, because that's how many people have registered to vote in England for the Polish elections. And those are the kind of, if you like, things, those are the kind of events that actually show what a total waste of time the ONS is.
Well,
great stats there, Mike. They're news to me. They sound horrifying. Out,
Mike, you're absolutely right in many respects. In fact, Migration Watch pointed out to the ONS that they were missing figures when we were just going back years to the numbers who were coming in from Eastern Europe. They weren't actually counting those who were coming in coaches and buses in the southeast ports. So, yes, they do have a bit of a record for not always getting it right. But ultimately, that's their job. And on the whole, knowing a few of them, they do try and do it honestly. The fact is that they're always running to catch their tail. The numbers coming in now are such that it's going to be years before we know for sure exactly how many have come in and how many have come out. And that's what I think I would like to see improve, is the way that these figures are collected and collated it's taking far too long, and in this day and age, my goodness, surely we've got the resources and ability to find.
Great stat. Thank you so much for clarifying that. That's extraordinary. Just to remind everyone that the Polish government said we had 240,000 Polish people living in England registered to vote in Poland, but our own statisticians thought we only had 13,000.
Well, let me point to another figure. If you remember when people were invited to register as
EU citizens,
we were told that there would be something like 3.5 million.
And how many registered for settled status?
Over 6 million.
There you are. It shows they're absolutely clueless. We've got Carol back on the line from North Wales. Carol, are you with us?
Hiya.
Thank you. What did you want to say to Alp?
Well, I want to say that I'm 84 and I don't want to live here anymore. I've always been happy. I've been through the war, Second World War, and nothing was as bad as this. The country's in a hell of a mess. Now, what I'm annoyed about is that all these immigrants coming in, it's the taxpayer in this country, the taxpayer, those that go out to work and pay tax and everything else we pay. Why don't we have a referendum and put it to the people of this country? Do they want to give their tax money to immigrants?
And of course, many, much of the migration, actually, we've seen the number of people working goes up. So many do work. But the real point is, of course, does it increase the wealth per person over time? And what we're seeing, and the data is now finally coming out, and even the establishment are having to admit that per head, per person, it's not increasing at all. And there's a huge upfront infrastructure cost. You're quite right, Carol. I'm so sad that you feel like that. Many people are fuming. We have to have hope. We have to be optimistic, though. We're going to come back to Alp. We've got to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. It's Tice Talk. It's TalkTV. Welcome back, my friends, to Tice Talk. I've got Alp Mehmet in the studio. Loads of calls and messages coming in here. John says, 1 million coming in by way of lawful migration. How can we ever expect to be carbon neutral when with this mass immigration makes all our efforts futile? Very interesting point, John. We might put that to one of the eco-zealots that we next have on. And then Louise says, what happens if a student comes in, finishes a course, gets a job off the books with, say, a family member in a shop or something? Well, I guess that is, all of that stuff happens, I guess, Al.
It does, and there is no control over what sort of job you take. Once you've completed your studies, you've graduated, you can take any job available for 2 years. And many people at that point can probably also bring their
dependents and then apply for one of the supposed skilled worker visas that's basically open borders. Let's just quickly go to Jim, who's here in London, and then we'll talk about the Archbishop and his performance on all of this. Jim, good morning.
Good morning, Richard. I phoned up because you was talking about these visas that students get, but last week I drive a London taxi, and last Saturday, one of these food delivery bikers ran into the back of me. And I got out. He was on the floor. He injured his ribs. Anyway, he couldn't speak English. He come from Brazil. And we conversed with Google Translate. Anyway, because he was in a lot of agony, I said to him, sit in the back of the cab. And I said, I'll call you an ambulance. And he said, no, please don't. With the Google Translate, you can imagine how long all this was taking.
For sure.
And he was telling me that he was here on a visa, holiday visa, and he said, I work for a company and they get all my money, and if you call the ambulance, the police will be involved. And I said, I've got to notify the police. By then, he'd already given me a copy of his Brazilian driving licence. And he said, they get my money. He said, I hardly get anything. What prompted me to think, are these people all working for a human trafficking gang, bringing them over on these visas, getting them to work, taking all their money, and then these he was only a young guy, about 19 or 20, poor young people. And I've got to be honest, I know cabbies, a lot of people say we're right-wingers. We're not. We're quite compassionate, a lot of us. And I felt sorry for him. Anyway, just then a police car went past and when someone gets injured, you have to notify the police. And I thought, if there's one here, I'll do it.
Yes.
Anyway, I called him over, and I didn't exchange that view to him. I thought I'd let him sort it out. Anyway, only yesterday I've got a letter through from the Metropolitan Police Traffic Criminal Justice Unit regarding the accident. I'm now torn between, do I let them know what my thoughts were, what he told me, or whether I say nothing. I've probably got to do the right thing and maybe mention it to them.
Exactly, but well done you for helping. But you've raised a really, really interesting point about the risk of trafficking with what we think are sort of professional delivery companies.
Yeah, well, you see, like anyone will tell you who lives in London or any other city, the explosion of the food delivery drivers on bikes is incredible, and they are all young immigrant guys. And you're wondering, are they? Probably a lot of them are legit, but it just sort of...
No, Jim, listen, I'm so grateful for the call. It's a great, great question. Thank you very much indeed. I've noticed the explosion in delivery drivers. I mean, this issue of illegal working, potential sort of trafficking like that, do you think that is significant in a city like London, Alp?
Massive. People, frankly, be it students, and very often... the caller, sorry, I missed his name. Jim. He's right. Students very often get into studies primarily because they come here as visitors, say. And this is not all of them by any means, but they will come here as visitors and then they will stay beyond their permission.
And he was talking about someone just on a holiday visa. Jim, thank you so much for a great call. Just before, because time's flying by up, Archbishop Welby, he's been in the news for good and bad reasons this week. How does the Church of England do with looking after refugees, given the Archbishop's concerns about doing the right moral thing?
Well, I didn't actually. I was a bit taken aback by His Grace's his pointing to the immorality, really, of denying people who are coming here in boats permission or questioning the fact that they're doing it. Frankly, I would question the morality of effectively encouraging that sort of illegality.
Absolutely.
Of encouraging people actually to risk their lives. Does he consider that that may be questionable, that him effectively saying to people, don't worry about it, it's okay because the Church of England supports you? I think that's wrong, and a lot of people in this country think it's wrong.
And apparently the Church of England only houses a few dozen refugees, despite all of the vast lands and wealth that they've got. Pretty extraordinary. Sounds pretty hypocritical to me.
Well, I'm not sure that we should get into the business of saying you should put refugees up and the church should and whatever. Frankly, there are those who genuinely qualify for asylum. Great.
Yeah.
The vast majority of those who cross the channel in dinghies don't.
That's right.
And they should be sent back.
Alp, fantastic as always. Thank you so much for your thoughts. So your view on the numbers coming out on May the 25th, you think it'll be somewhat less than 1 million, that the 1 million might be the upper end. We will see. It will be fascinating.
Even if it's only 500,000 as it was last time, that is massive, and that is a huge risk to the future well-being of this country.